I was reading with some dismay this morning when a pastor who had not opened his church yet, didn't have any kind of thing outdoor for them or anything like that. He said, I'm just waiting for the post-COVID church to come around. Then we'll open it back up. He said, here's a sermon for you to read. And it talked all about having faith and forging forward and being like Moses. And I said, physician, heal thyself. And I hear them talk all the time that they're scared to have church. Well, who in the world are you worshiping, for crying out loud? He made us. Can't he fix us? Can't he protect us? You know, I don't understand it. I really don't. And there's so many things that we're missing out on in this world because we just simply never ask God for it. James said, you have not because you ask not. And then he said, some of you are asking things of God that you can consume on your lust, and that's why he's not giving it to you. But I want to give you all great encouragement today. When you walk out of here, I want you to feel completely encouraged and no fear at all. Because fear, as Leela sung, is a liar. And it does not come from God. Jeremiah wrote this in Jeremiah 33. He said, moreover, the word of the Lord came unto Jeremiah the second time while he was shut up in the court of the prison. He was in prison. And God said this, thus saith the Lord, the maker thereof, the Lord that formed it, to establish it, and the Lord is his name. Don't be afraid. He is still on his throne. He's still there this morning. Listen to this. And this is for all of us. Call unto me, and I will answer thee, and I will show thee great and mighty things which thou knowest not. There is so much more he wants to do with us that we have no idea. All we got to do is call on him. Now it's time for me to embarrass the dickens out of everybody in there. Where's Jim Grigg at? Send him back here to me. He's hiding already. He knew I was going to do. Come up here, brother. I ain't going to embarrass him, but so much. Look at the, I'm going to tell you how God does things. To give y'all some encouragement. You see this little scrawny thing right here? Now, y'all, most of y'all in here have never met his daddy. His daddy passed away a number of years ago. Now, Jim and I used to be lawmen together. We worked at the sheriff's department. And whenever there was a riot in the jail, if there was 12 or more men rioting in that cell block, we opened the door and shoved him in there. And after he got everything sorted out, then we came in and tried to act like we was tough and bad and we were, heroes. I've watched fists bounce off of that man before. I kid you not. Now, for the longest kind of time, while we were working together, I would invite him to church after we had started our little church here, and he'd look at me and he'd go, I appreciate the offer, but you ain't never going to see me in church. You're just not going to see me there. Until one day, his daddy, who was twice his size, could put a quarter through that man's wedding band. Pretty close. Showed up when we were in that church over there, and he had his hand around this man's great big arm, and it actually went just about around there. Brought him in the door by the arm and said, come on in here. And he come up to me, he said, my boy here needs Jesus, and I brought him in here for that. That's true, he said that. And Jim sat there and didn't say a word and listened to the message. And Jim had left the sheriff's department, he was a truck driver. And the next Sunday, he comes in and grabs me and he said, I need to talk to you right now. And I thought, oh Lord, what did I do? So we went down to my office, and he told me, he said, I have not been able to rest all week after what I heard. And he said, I want to get saved, and I don't want to wait till the service. I want it right now. Amen. And the Lord really turned his life around. Of course, he was instantly attacked by the devil the moment he did that, and he's been fighting it all along. But God turned a lot of things around in his life and gave him untold blessings, and now here he is. Now I'm going to tell you, he might not can outrun you, but if he ever gets his hands on you, it's too sad. So if you go run your mouth at him, don't do it within grabbing range. But he and his wife are two of our deacons now, and I'm just very, very proud, because the Bible says, call on me, and I will show you great and mighty things which thou knowest not. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it. You're a good sport. Lenny Glacier, come on back here, brother. Come on. You got the camera locked on, and I'll leave it looking right at where we are. But you come down here. You can't embarrass Lenny, though, unfortunately. I know I've tried. That's right. This is what you call a completed Jew. He has a double blessing. He really does, both being Jewish and being saved at the same time. We met Lenny. He showed up, him and his wife showed up at a revival we were doing. And the Martin family, Bill and Diane, would always talk about the Glaciers. Oh, you got to meet the Glaciers. You got to meet the Glaciers. I just thought he was lying that they didn't really exist, because I never saw them.
And I thought the same thing, because every time we went to Bill Martin's house, you just missed the caches.
Yeah.
Every time.
So finally I made him show me a picture of them that they did exist. Well, to make a long story short, it was a good number of years ago that y'all came. 15 years, and they started attending regularly. But I'm going to tell you something. This old boy right here has been at the door of death more than anybody else in here could possibly imagine, to the point to where one time his lungs were literally gone. His kidneys had shut down. His pulse was 250. Now, you were unconscious, but I saw that. And they called the family in, and they just didn't see no way around it. And people started calling on the Lord and asking in behalf, because his wife said, I'm not ready to be a widow yet. And we prayed and prayed, and then he woke up after several days, and unfortunately, I was standing over him when he woke up. He said he still wasn't quite sure where he was at the time. And he could talk a little bit, but God has seen him through some incredible stuff, because somebody called on the Lord, and the Lord showed us great and mighty things which we knew not. God bless you, brother. All right. Now, you're going to have to swing the camera around to catch this. Back a number of years ago, Torrance come to us, and he was telling us, I'm on number 7, it's starting to resonate a little bit there. I think that's me. A number of years ago, Torrance came to us, and he said, I met this really crazy man down at Smith Mountain Lake, and he's singing beach music down there, but he wants to sing gospel music. He loves the Lord, and he's been wanting to sing gospel music. And so I said, well, bring him on in here. And that Sunday that he came in, he had long hair like I did at the time, and he was teasing me about me, and we just really, really hit it off. And we've watched God do things with him and his wife over the years. I always said this is one of the ladies that really has class. And how in the world he snagged her, I will never know. But since that day, Nikki has not only become a great singer in our church, but he's also one of our pastors and a very accomplished preacher. and minister. And we thank God for him because somebody prayed and called on the name of the Lord. Yes. And he will show you great and mighty things which you know not. Right. And he will every time you do that. 26 years ago, we were at the church over on the hill. Pam Hayes shows up at the door with a newspaper. She's going to kill me later, but that's all right. And was showing me the story of one of her children. And to make a long story short, we became friends. And her husband and her family have been part of our church body and done just about everything that's possible to do here. And I appreciate both of them so very, very much. Yes. Lord, we got the Clarks. Amen. We got you guys. I could go up and down. The Andersons, I don't have time to deal with that. Got to the point to where I was praying, I can't do none of this no more because it was too much. And he sent us the Andersons. And they picked up the slack and did some pretty amazing things. Now, a few years ago, I ran an ad in the newspaper. We got a sanctuary over at the school. And I was going to see if somebody wanted to rent the thing to start a church in it. Well, Mike Duff showed up at the door, and we stood in the auditorium for several hours talking. Come to find out, I was graduated with his brother, and I'd heard all kinds of horrible tall tales about Mike Duff, but I never had met him before. And I found out later they all were true, okay? And Mike talked to me the longest kind of time. Found out later that he thought that was where the church was, and when I told him it was over here, it really shocked him because he grew up here. And wow, to make a long story short, him and his wife became part of our church family and literally part of our family. And he's one that I can vent on every day and tell him what I'm thinking. And I'll kill him if he ever tells on me. But he has become one of my dearest friends, and I appreciate the Duff family so very much and what they have meant to us. And it boils down to this. Call on me, and I will show you great and mighty things which you know not. We ask for things, and God shows up in the strangest of ways. I think of that food bank downstairs. I met the Wilsons because my son was dating, I think it was her niece. And she wound up inviting him, and now we have the largest food bank on the planet, just about. And they called me over to look at what they were giving away yesterday. And it was absolutely amazing what I saw. Absolutely amazing. And I could go to each and every one of y'all. I've known this lady right here since she was a little bitty girl. Little bitty girl. Most of y'all have no idea what she has had to go through in her life. And most people that have dealt with what she's dealt with wouldn't be sitting here right now. They'd be dead or somewhere out on the street or God knows what. But her granddaddy got to influence her life, Pastor Bowley. Many of y'all have never met him. You've heard enough about him. I've told you everything. And I've watched her life change and transform over the years to where she is one of the godliest women I've ever met. I'll say that. She's got as much wisdom as other women twice her age. God's hand is on her and her husband and her children. And she is still going through the most impossible odds, but yet God is going to see to it that she makes it. Now, this little thing right here, I'm going to say a little something about her later.
That was not on purpose.
Yeah, that was staged. Let me just get a kiss, and then we'll talk about her in a little bit. If I can do it without crying. We'll see. I might have to get a backup preacher to come down here and help me with that. Can I get you to come down here, baby? I'm going to tell something ain't none of y'all heard before, but maybe 2 or 3 of you. And this is going to really be embarrassing, but I'm going to tell you, it's time to confess, ain't it? Come on here. When you get a certain age, embarrassment means nothing. Tomorrow at 10 p.m. is a huge anniversary for us. And I'll explain it. On July the 20th, 1984, some of y'all won't even thought of then. I was sitting in my house. It was a Friday night, looking at the 4 walls. I shouldn't attempt this. I was depressed. I'd had enough of life. I just felt terrible. And I'm an electronics nut, and I'm a ham-up radio operator, and so I thought of something to do to pass the time. I went over to my parents' basement next door and dug out an old CB radio that had been taken apart into little pieces. And I was in a single wide trailer, and I put a little tiny magnet antenna on the top of it, and I hooked it up, and I put the thing back together. It took me a couple of hours. And it was in the evening about, I don't know, around 8 o'clock. And I got it to come on, and it worked, and I heard a woman talking. Now, this really is old because it's 84. On channel 21. And I noticed that it started getting stronger and stronger, and so I wanted to see if the radio worked. Honest to God, that's all I wanted to do. And I just got on there and I said, "Can you hear me?" And she said, "Yes, I can hear you really loud and clear." And I said, "I just wanted to see if this radio worked. I'm on Isaac Walton Road." And she said, "Well, that's where I live." She said, "Well, that's where I'm heading. I live there." And I didn't say nothing for a minute, and I thought, and I said, "Well, let me ask her." I said, "Well, I ought to know you. If you live on Isaac Walton Road, who are you?" She said, "You got to be kidding. I ain't telling you who I am." She said, "I don't know you." She said, "I don't know nothing about you." She said, "I'm not about to tell you who I am." And then I told her, I said, "Well, I'm David Cash. I work for the sheriff's department over in town." She said, "That don't mean nothing to me. I still ain't telling you who I am." And because they're about the crookedest things in the world. And finally, I told her I went to Amherst High, told her how old I was, I told her where I lived, and she finally relented, and she said, "Well, I'm Donna Bursch." And I said, "Well, I don't know you." And then I got curious, but I knew some of her family, you know, and I said, "Well, I'd like to see who you are." And she said, "Oh, no. So it took me 2 hours of conning her. And at 10 o'clock at night, she said, "All right, I'll tell you where I live and I'll meet you." But her parents were out there with her. And she was on the carport. I drove by her house several times, and she finally said, "You've missed me several times." She saw my car. And so I pulled up, and she shook my hand, and we sat on her carport from 10 o'clock until 2 o'clock in the morning, just talking. And her parents were watching, and they were wondering if I was a nut or not, and they both died wondering that later on. And I really started to like her. And believe me, I won't look at And I thought to myself, I'm going to ask her out. And if she says no, then that's the end of this deal. I ain't going to worry about it. We'll just see. And I did it with my normal great salesman. I looked at her and I said, "Hey, if you ain't doing nothing tomorrow night, or actually tonight, would you like to maybe go out?" And she smiled and she said, "That would be nice." That's right. And our first date, I felt like a fish out of water. But it was great. And I was so nervous. And when I took her home that night, she smiled at me. She had braces. And she stood on the carport and she said, "Have you ever kissed a woman with braces before?" And I said, no, I haven't. She said, would you like to? I said, yes, I would. From July the 20th, 1984, until March the 31st of 1985, we missed seeing each other only one day. We spent every day together. And we got married on March the 31st. That's why I didn't see her the day before. And we've been together 35 years, but tomorrow's our 36th anniversary. And I'm going to tell you, that you trust the Lord. You call on the Lord, and He will show you great and mighty things which you know not.
Amen. Bless you, sweetheart.
And I'll leave you with one more thing. We were in the little church on the hill 20-some years ago. Our church has been in existence for 27 years. And it's been about 25 when we were over there. And we were coming out of the church. It was a little bitty church. This is Jesus Center now. And we had been praying to get in a large building and all that, and it was just no way. Well, there comes the pastor from this church when it was a Methodist, Madison Heights Methodist, and he walks from here all the way over to the Jesus Center. Now, we were all looking like Nick Marika standing outside. I wore a t-shirt and blue jeans, and that's it. And here he comes, a very stately man with a nice suit on. And we're all out in the yard, and he said, where's your pastor at? And of course, being good, loyal members, they all stood out of the way and throwed me right under the bus and said, there he is. I thought some of our kids threw rocks at them or something, you know, I don't know. And he looked at me and he said, I need to talk with you right away. Kind of like what Jim did. So we go down to my office, and I said, what's on your mind? He introduced himself as Pastor Doug Pillow, real man of God, Methodist pastor. He put both hands on my desk and looked at me, and the tears started rolling down his face, and he said, our superintendent tells us we've got to move out of this area. And we know that this area needs Jesus, and we want you to buy this building from us. And I laughed at him. I got in the flesh, I laughed at him. We had $200 in the bank. We did. And I said, brother, there ain't no way in the world. I said, I appreciate that, but there ain't no way in the world. He said, please just meet with our realtor. God showed me there is a way. You can do it. I said, okay. So I brought our congregation over here, and we walked through, and everybody looked at this and said, oh my goodness, buy it, Brother Dave, buy it, Brother Dave. And I said, okay, we'll do what we can. And I met with the realtor, and she gave us the figure of what they wanted for the building. And I was authorized by our people to give her $100 down. That's all I had, because I had to keep the other 100. We had to pay the light bill over there. And I went to bank after bank, and some bankers would not even turn around in their chair and look at me. If they had, they definitely would have thrown me out. But anyway, they wouldn't even look and said, no, y'all are too young. We can't give y'all this, that, blah, blah, blah. And finally, I went to one bank in Madison Heights, and the banker's last name was Brooks. He said, I know y'all are putting a school over there. He said, if you will sign up 10 students, I will loan y'all the money for the building. I said, seriously? He said, oh yeah. So we were hustling. And he told me, he said, but before you do that, you need to understand you're going to have to pay several $1,000s in closing costs. Well, while we were trying to round up enough students to start the school here and make the payment, we were seeing who was stupid enough to loan me a credit card or two so that we could pay the closing costs. I got the students, and I went over there and laid the paperwork on the desk. And I said, what about the closing costs? And he told me, he said, shut the door, brother. And he told me, he said, I teach Sunday school at my church, and I love the Lord. He said, I know how hard it is to try to serve God on a budget. He said, I took care of your closing costs. I'd never asked him what he meant. And we got here. And since that day, a very, very precious family paid this thing off. And here we are. And God has used this building, as ragged as it is, to bless an awful lot of people. More than we will ever know until we get to heaven. We've seen a lot of people healed in this building, a lot of lives changed in this building. And I'm not glorifying the building, but it's something God gave us. And doggone it, it's sacred ground to me. It is. And now He sent us a number of other people along that's going to help restore this thing back to its original glory. Because I think we ought to do that for the house of God, don't you? All because the Bible said, call on me, and I will show you great and mighty things which you know not. Having said that, we're going to give you an opportunity, if you need prayer, to come. If everybody would stand for a minute. I know we're running a little late, but hey, it's all right. And we're going to bless that little baby in just a few minutes. But I want to get some prayer warriors to come down, and do you have a song of invitation you can put on? Okay. And if y'all have a need for prayer, would you make your way? Would you make your way? If you've never been saved, please come and take one of us by the hand. If you need healing, if you need encouragement, if you need prayer, it doesn't matter what it is, would you make your way down here? And if you need somebody to pray with you, grab one of us and we'll pray with you. We want to give you the time to come if you need to come. It don't matter what it is.
Just as I am and waiting not to rid my soul of one dark blot, to thee whose blood can cleanse each spot, O Lamb of God, I come.
Can we have some folks to gather around Martha? She wants to stand in for her mom, who is very sick right now.